We're being told that food prices will go up dramatically in 2026, and one of the main reasons for that is the rising price of meat. So, how important is meat in our diet? After all, the World Health Organization has declared red meat a carcinogen. Dr. Christopher Labos joins us to talk about this. So, the season of overeating is just about honest, Dr. Labos, but should we be eating meat, and is it fair to call it a carcinogen?
Well, it is fair to call it a carcinogen in that there is scientific evidence that a diet that's very high in red meat, and in particular in processed red meat, yes, it does slightly increase your risk for colorectal cancer. That is a thing. But that being said, the risk is relatively small, and you don't actually need to eat meat. There are many people who are vegetarians who eat vegetables who don't eat meat, and they live to tell the tale. So it's not an essential part of the diet. It's just that it's a very, very common part of the diet for those of us in North America and Europe because it's become so ingrained in our cultural tradition.
And there are many different kinds of meat, right? And there seems to be confusion about what is white meat and red meat. Can you explain that?
So I think most people will probably remember the old story about, pork, the other white meat. That was a marketing slogan. It had actually no scientific basis whatsoever. The actual scientific definition is mammals are red meat, birds are white meat. So it doesn't matter what kind of mammal it is, whether it's, a pig, a cow, whether it's veal, it doesn't matter how it's prepared, it doesn't matter the quality of the cut, it doesn't matter the age of the animal. Any mammal is red meat. The only white meat is chicken and other birds. What makes the biggest difference, though, is whether it's processed or not. Is it just cooked on the barbecue, which is quote unquote natural red meat, or is it cured or salted or processed in some way? So a sausage, that would be processed red meat, and that is much worse than you just grilling a steak on your barbecue.
Why is processed meat so unhealthy for us?
Well, it's basically all the stuff they do to it and all the stuff that they add to it, all the salt, all the preservatives, all of that stuff is inherently bad for you. So you could make a real question, like, is it the actual meat or is it all the additives? And I think most people would say that it's probably the additives more than anything else, which is why, importantly, and this is not often always made clear in sort of media reports, it's processed red meat that is a carcinogen. When the WHO evaluated regular red meat, the quality of the evidence was much, much weaker. And that's why it got a very conditional sort of designation. It's really the processed red meat that's the carcinogen.
Okay, so we shouldn't be having smoked meat every week, then I take it. But for people like myself who just love a good steak once in a while, feel like I almost need one, what is the risk and what should our relationship be with eating meat? Can we have it once every 2 weeks? I mean, it's pretty expensive. Not many people are eating it nightly.
Yeah, well, and this is an important point, is that if we go back to the original WHO report, the way they calculated this estimate was that if you were to eat processed red meat every day, so like the smoked meat, the sausages, the bacon, stuff like that, if you eat processed red meat every day, you're going to be increasing your risk of colorectal cancer in particular by a relative risk of something like 20 to 30%. But what does that mean in a practical sense? Well, your lifetime risk of getting colorectal cancer, if we estimate it at around 5%, that's going to go up to about 6%. So on an absolute scale, you're gaining about a 1 percentage point risk of colorectal cancer if you eat processed red meat every day. So some people are going to look at that and say that's a very high risk. Other people are going to say, well, that's a relatively small risk and I don't eat meat every day, so I'm probably fine. So I think the math helps us to put it in context a little bit.
Okay, so I might just stick with my bavette once in a while then, based on what you're telling me,
Fair
as
enough.
long as I'm not having it every day.
I
Dr.
think that's
Christopher
fair. I think that's
Lavos,
fair.
thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Take care.